Hello and welcome everyone to our NPM 12 upgrade training. We're glad to have you all here. We've got a lot of great content for you, so we're excited to get started. So to start us off here, I'd like to go through our presenters. We've got several SolarWinds resources joining the webinar, presenting information for you. Chris Kleintz is Senior Application Engineer. He's been with SolarWinds for a long time and loves nature and fine foods.
Indeed.
I'm Chris O'Brien. I'm the product manager for NPM. I'm a former network engineer here at SolarWinds turned product manager. My fun fact is all fun all the time, if you can believe it. Kenny Newbury is our senior technical trainer. He'll be joining us to walk you through a demo of some of our features that are new here. And finally, we've got Lori, our senior information developer, going through some of our new content to help you upgrade. So quick agenda, we'll be going through what's new in NPM v12. We'll be going over the new platform UI that covers NPM along with all of our other Orion-based products. We'll look at NetPath and Network Insight for F5, the big new features coming out in NPM v12, as well as SwitchStack and ServiceNow integration. For these things, we'll be looking at how to use and configure specifically NetPath and Network Insight for F5. So we'll be doing demos of that here. We'll talk about how to plan for an upgrade and show you the new resources we have to leverage to make sure your upgrade is successful. And finally, how to stage your environment to prepare for your upgrade. Just a reminder, we do have panelists standing by listening for your questions in the chat. So by all means, shoot over your questions. We'll be taking some of them offline for response. We'll be responding to them, some of them live as well. So let's jump right into it. So we've got 5 features I'd like to go through quickly here, just to give you an idea of what these features are for, why we built them, why we think they will be helpful to you. The first big one, and the one you're likely to notice the soonest when you upgrade, is the new UI. So the new UI is comprised of 2 things. The first thing is that we've rebuilt the menu bar at the top of the screen. The menu bar is now more functional. It's easier to navigate around. We've popped up the sort of cross-platform functionality or cross-product functionality that you need for all of the products, like alerts and reports, up to a top-level navigation. But you still have the familiar tabs that you know and love for your various products, network, config, and so forth within the My Dashboards drop-down there. So we'll go over that a little bit more, but the next one I'd like to talk about is our big new feature, NetPath Services. NetPath Services is designed to map the network path from your users all the way to the destination service that they're accessing. The goal there is so that you can understand the end-to-end performance, but NetPath also tells you what infrastructure in the middle is required for that end-to-end performance to be good, and provides hop-by-hop analysis to understand where there may be slowdowns or problems that you need to resolve. Cisco SwitchStack monitoring is a common request for us. We've got a lot of people monitoring SwitchStacks. I think Cisco really hit a sweet spot with SwitchStacks in terms of wiring closets. They're really a great solution there, and NPM v12 provides some new visibility into this very popular platform. Finally, Network Insight for F5 Big IP. If you have F5 LTM or GTM, or F5 Big IP DNS is the new name for their GTM appliance, you want to see this section. We have built a huge amount of deep relationship-aware monitoring for these appliances so that you can have full visibility of your application delivery stack. ServiceNow integration is the last feature, the last big feature we're surfacing here. Basically, what that does for you is it makes it very easy to integrate Orion, all Orion products, including NPM, with ServiceNow, such that you can handle the entire incident lifecycle within the alerting function for SolarWinds. So SolarWinds alerts can trigger a new incident, and then handle the entire incident lifecycle of creation, acknowledgement, update, closure, and even reopening if you should choose. All right, with that, I will pass it over to Kenny, who will be starting us off here. So give us just a moment here. I'll pass over the presenter rights. While I'm passing that over to Kenny, I would like to mention that all of this is included right out of the box with NPM v12. There's no new features to license or anything of that nature. NetPath, F5, monitoring, ServiceNow integration, this is all included with your NPM v12 licensing. And with that, I will pass to Kenny.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome. So I get to actually go through the two biggest, most visible additions in NPM 12, which are, again, NetPath and NetInsight for F5s. So we're going to take a look at the F5 load balancing feature first of all here. So to get to this, and I've already got it pulled up, but to get to this, if you just go to My Dashboards and Load Balancing, this is the screen that you're going to come up with. And Chris already mentioned this is included with the product. No additional licensing, no nothing. So here's what happens, is when you add an F5 node, now Orion is going to say, oh, okay, this is an F5. Let's go pull this environment and let's bring this into this view so that you can see your entire F5 architecture from one screen. And so that's what I'm looking at now. Now, this is a test environment, of course. I've got a lot of things down and unknown and, all kinds of weird things going on. But the point is that I don't have to configure anything. All I do is go out, discover my F5s, and it's going to pull all of this information in for me. Now, when I'm looking at this, this is, of course, again, my complete F5 architecture, but it's a lot of stuff. So what we need to do is we need to drill down into this so that we can actually see what's going on here a little bit more easily. Now, before we drill down, I do want to mention, so what I've got is basically the F5 stack, everything that is happening to get from a client actually trying to get to a website or a service or whatever to that service request actually being responded to. So we'll talk about this stack in just a second. But right now, what we're looking at is obviously a lot of little dots, and it makes it a little bit difficult to see what I'm actually looking for. Now, I can come up here and go to Edit and check the box here for Show Names. And that'll make it a little easier for me to see because now I have names for everything. So now I have a lot of little dots with names on them. So still, we need to drill down before we're really going to be able to see anything tremendously useful here. So I'm actually going to go back in and turn off the names here because it makes it a little bit easier to see in some cases. All right, so now I'm looking at everything. So I've got my services up here, global traffic managers, etc. So I can come down and just click on something. So I can hover over and see what it is first of all. Okay, so let's take a look at this local traffic manager. So I'm going to click on this, and when I do, I get a pop-up that gives me two options, either display details page or show relations. And I'm going to go to show relations first of all. And what you'll notice is that I'm actually still in the same view. I'm still looking at my load balancing view. What I've done is I've just applied a filter to that view so that all I'm seeing is the relationships between this local traffic manager and all of the other components of my F5 deployment. So let's run through this. Now, this, of course, is not an F5 class, but just so that everybody understands kind of what it is that we're looking at, here is your load balancing stack. So up here at the top, we have our services. This is what your customers are trying to get to. So it might be a website. It might be some application server. It doesn't matter what it is. So this is where the customer is trying to get. When they come in and make this request, now F5 takes over and says, okay, we're going to get you to an actual box that can service that request down here at the bottom. To do that, we go through a number of steps. So first of all, we have the global traffic managers. This is basically DNS resolution. So if I'm trying to go to www.myreallybigwebsite.com, the load balancer is going to say, you know what, we can actually service this in multiple regions. So if you're in Asia versus in Europe versus in the United States, we probably have a server that's a little bit closer, a little bit quicker for you. So using DNS resolution, we can get you directed to the right region. Below that, we have the local traffic managers, which is basically IP address resolution. So we've resolved DNS, and now, rather than going to a specific IP address, the load balancer says, okay, we're going to send you to a pool of machines that you can connect to. And that's actually managed using the virtual servers. The virtual servers give you a virtual IP that your clients are actually going to be connecting to. But then on the back side of that virtual IP, we have pools of servers that you're actually going to be connected to. So the pool is the group of all of the servers that you can get access to the service through. So in this particular instance, for example, you can see I've got one pool with a couple of different pool members. Now, this is, again, a test environment, so of course it's very small. Now, I can see all of these relationships here very quickly and easily, but obviously this tree structure in a production environment is going to get big really, really quickly. So in order to handle that, we actually handle this view just a little bit differently depending on how many objects you're actually looking at in the relationship. So let's look at that. So I'm going to close out my filter here, and this takes me back to seeing everything again. But I'm going to jump into one of my global traffic managers now, and this time I'm going to go to Display Details page. Now, the Display Details page is going to give you, obviously, a lot more detail about whatever it is that you are drilling down into. But the key element of this view, the key resource of this view, is actually this balancing environment resource, which is what we were just looking at a minute ago. It is integrated into the details view. But what you're seeing here is that besides the fact this resource is a little bit smaller, everything is compressed. When I'm looking at my global traffic manager, there's a lot more connected to it. So that tree structure wouldn't really be practical. It would just scale out too far. So what I'm seeing here is all of the objects that are connected to the global traffic manager just without the relationship lines. But what I can do now is I can click on any one of these icons. So I can choose my virtual servers and take a look at the down virtual servers. And that's going to show me a list of all of those down virtual servers. And I can either scroll through the list or I have a search field that I can work with as well. Now, all of these icons that you're seeing here, all of these statuses, these are basically roll-up statuses. Let's look at LANdesk, for instance, here. So this is reporting as being down. All right. At the virtual server level, this is reported as being down. That means probably everything below it is down. So if I go into pools, for instance, I'm going to see LANdesk here as well. So I could drill down into that. Or the same thing when I go into pool members. I'm going to find LANdesk. So if we take a look at these, let's go back to my pools. And if I click on the LANdesk pool, that's going to bring me up my details for the LANdesk pool. Now, this details view is a little bit different than the one that we were looking at just a minute ago because each one of these layers is going to have a slightly different details view. But here, now that I'm drilled down a little bit further, now this relationship tree is small enough that I can actually see it with all of the connections here. So I can take a look at my pool, and my pool says, okay, it is reporting as down. All of the pool members are down. Therefore, the pool is going to be down. These virtual servers are only servicing this pool, so since the pool is down, their reporting is down. So again, it's kind of a roll-up status. The local traffic manager, when I hover over this, you'll notice that it's in a warning state, and the status reason, one or more virtual servers is not up. So the status of these servers is affecting my roll-up status here, but this local traffic manager is also serving other virtual servers that we, of course, don't see in this relationship tree. So it's not down as a whole because I've got other virtual servers that are up and working the way they're supposed to be. So from this view, I can see a lot of detail about what is going on in the F5 environment. And again, I don't have to configure any of this. Now, the other nice thing about this tool is the fact that when you discover the F5s, all of this gets populated for you again. But not everything that you're seeing here necessarily has to be in your Orion deployment. So if I come back and take a look at my load balancing view again, all of these objects here, all of these services, when we get down here to the pools and the pool members, all of these actual servers, these are not in my Orion deployment necessarily. They don't have to be. So the nice thing about this tool is that there's no additional license count. There's no real additional overhead on Orion that you have to worry about significantly. All you have to do is discover, hey, I've got F5s out there. Orion takes care of everything else for you. So everything that you see through your F5 interface, you're going to see here, again, whether it's actually monitored through Orion or not. So if you have F5s, like Chris said, I do think that this is going to be something that will be really nice for you to take a look at. Now, the second feature that we're going to look at is NetPath. Now, NetPath you can get to by going to my dashboards again and to NetPath services. I've already got it pulled up, so I'm just going to switch over here. Now, one of the things that I remember about getting started in networking was just how cool it was when you really start thinking about what's going on. Hey, I just moved data from this point to this point. Magically, somehow, we just passed this information back and forth between these 2 points. And then what I thought was really cool was the first time that I ever ran a trace route and went, hey, I can actually see all of the connection points from point A to point B. Now that to me was just plain and simply cool. NetPath is traceroute, I can't even say on steroids because it is just a completely different beast. So NetPath is not only going to show you your start point and end point, but it's going to show you everything in between with an amazing amount of detail. So with NetPath, what you're going to do is you're going to create a path. So I'm going to go to create new service here, and then put in, obviously, the host name or IP address that you want to connect to and a port number. So any service you can actually test, you just have to have the port number. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with just connecting to a website. And my fun fact didn't get mentioned, but I was a former professional rock climber for one day. It was my shortest career ever. But I used to do an awful lot of climbing, so I'm going to go with climbing.com. That's my website that I tend to go to as my default, and we're just going to go to port 80. And then I can give an alias for this path if I want to. So we'll just call it climbing. And you'll notice that the probing interval is set to 10 minutes by default. Now, what is going to happen here is every 10 minutes, the agent is actually going to go out, hit climbing.com, and see how did I get there, and report that path back. Now, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to set this to a 1-minute polling interval, but I'm going to tell you, don't do this in a production environment unless you have a good reason to, because what will happen is you're going to end up with an awful lot of database utilization, because every 1 minute, we're going to go out and map this path and pull in all of that data as a snapshot and hang on to it. So it ends up being quite a lot very quickly. So for purposes of demonstration, I'm going to set this to 1 minute. But again, in your production environment, not something that we are recommending. So be a little bit careful about your probing intervals. But I'm going to go to next. And then it says, all right, assign a probe. Now, what this is really doing is saying, where do you want to start this path from? We know where we're going, but what machine do you want to test from? Now, by default, I'm going to be testing from my polling engine. Now, this probe software is actually the agent software that we've had around for a while. The first use of this agent software was for DPI, or deep packet inspection. So we install these agents out there, and it allows you to see what's going on, what's the difference between network latency and application latency. Hopefully all of you are familiar with DPI, or QoE is what we refer to it as within the web console. Now, later, we started using these agents for server monitoring. So your application agents is the same software. Well, here again, it is the same software. We're just using it for a different purpose. So what we're going to do is install this agent software someplace. Like I said, by default, it's going to install in your polling engine. But that's going to be our starting point. So this is, again, just saying, well, where do you want to test from? Right now, I don't have any other agents set up. So I'm just going to choose my polling agent, or my polling engine, sorry. and click on Create. And here now is my new path. Right now it says first poll isn't complete, so I don't have anything to see yet. Well, let's take a look at a path that is already complete. So I'm going to take a look at, let's go with this path right here. Now, this is actually a Minecraft server. You know, of course, no good office is complete without somebody in the office having their own Minecraft server. So I'm going to connect to this. This actually isn't far away from me. Take a look at the path. Look at what I see here. So here is my start point. Here is my end point, and here is everything in between. And look at the level of detail that you see. So I can zoom in here, and I can see at what point I actually leave my office and go out to the outside world. And I can see everything in between in the architecture. Now, if I was actually managing these nodes, these internal nodes, I would see more detail. Because this is a test environment, I don't actually manage these devices, so I don't have the level of detail that you would have on your own network. But I can see this pathway out across the world. So I'm seeing, oh, hey, look, we're going from Texas at this point to, and again, notice the level of detail. And as we move from Texas out towards Salt Lake City, we can see dynamic routes in the path. When I get into Salt Lake, here's my local telco, and check out what I can actually see here. So here is the endpoint. Here's the server, and you can see that we've got load balancing going on, and I can see it. So I've got 2 load balancers servicing this thing, and then back behind that, I've got 4 more fully meshed load balancers that are servicing these 2. So I could actually take a look at one of my services that's running slowly, look at NetPath, and call up an ISP and say, hey, that load balancer that you have seems to be acting up. And the ISP, of course, is going to say, wait a minute, how do you know that? What? So the level of detail here is, to me, just astounding. Now, if you are anything like me, then there is a possibility that this may get you into trouble in terms of time spent, because it's just fascinating to me to look at some of these paths. Let me show you an example of what I mean. I'm going to go out to this Chinese search engine because I wanted to look at a pathway a little bit further afield. So here I am coming from my office, heading out to China, and I can see the entire pathway in between here and there. So I can drill down into this. I can zoom in just a little bit. And what I'm actually seeing along this pathway are the nodes that I'm connecting to and the possible pathways that I could use to be getting there, along with the average millisecond delay per each link. So I can see not just end-to-end how long does it take, but at each hop, how long does it take. And you'll notice my slowest link here is actually going from Dallas to Los Angeles. But then here's what I think is cool. My next stop, Los Angeles again. See, I can actually go map these nodes to physical locations in the world, which I've done. So this is in Los Angeles, and then the link from here to here is actually an undersea cable. Oops, my view refreshed on me, so let's pull this back in again. But this is actually an undersea cable going from Los Angeles to Oregon. And then right here is the undersea cable going from Oregon to Tokyo. So I can see where these 2 nodes are physically in the world by looking up the information that I've got available here. And look how quickly we're traversing the Pacific Ocean. This is just nuts. This is incredible information. So I think this is just absolutely fascinating. Again, the level of detail that you see here is just something that you've just never really had available to you before. So let's take a look at setting up one of these agents real quickly. And this is actually a true story. So my computer crashed literally minutes before this presentation. So I had to go to a backup computer, and I had to get an agent set up and deployed very quickly so that I could actually run this demo. It is a very simple, very quick process. Here's how you're actually going to do it. If you go into Settings, go into All Settings, and under Node and Group Management, you're going to go into Manage Agents. this is where you're going to see the list of agents, that agent software that has been installed someplace. It doesn't matter where. Now, once again, remember that the agent software is the same software that you're using for SAM monitoring, application monitoring, and DPI monitoring. So since there's no difference between the agent software, when you come into this screen, you're going to see all of the agents that are deployed. So don't be thrown off by that. Now, I don't have any additional agents added at this point, so I'm going to click on Add Agent here. And then I have two options, deploy the agent on my network or connect to a previously installed agent. Now, if you say deploy the agent on my network, it's basically going to be looking for agent software installed on one of your nodes that you are monitoring within Orion. Or it'll allow you to push that agent software out to one of the agents or one of the nodes monitored in Orion. Now, I'm not monitoring my laptop from Orion, and that's actually okay. So I'm going to go to, instead, connect to a previously installed agent. Now, before I do this, I want to point out, so here's going to be your whole process. Notice right here, there is this download agent software link. Now, I've already done this, but I want to show you where it is. So I click on download the agent software, and then it says, okay, how do you want to deploy the agent? Install it manually, send it out en masse. I'm going to go with install manually, and for your NetPath probes, this is probably the route that you're going to go. When you install the software manually, it's going to give you a link to download the agent software, and then you can just deploy this on whichever machine you want. Now, I've already done that step, so let me show you how far along I am. So I have downloaded the software. I have run the installer, which takes all of about 2 minutes. Now, I come up with my settings screen, and so I'm going to put in the IP address of my Orion server. So 10.199.14.50. This communicates over, by default, port 17778, and then I have to provide my credentials to log into my Orion deployment. So we go to next. All right, there are my settings. Does that look okay? Yes, it does. So let's go ahead and install this. And it does take just a second for this installer to run. So in the meantime, let's come back here for just a moment. And you'll notice that now, climbing, the path is there. So I can click on this pathway, and I can see my end-to-end connection between me and Climbing Magazine. And hey, looky there, they're load balancing me. So I can see their different web servers and how those are integrated. So again, just a tremendous amount of detail that you've got available to you here. And I got to let my install finish. Where this becomes really useful is, of course, not just simply saying, okay, here is my path endpoint to endpoint, but when you have trouble along your pathway. So let's back up for just a minute and look at one where we do actually have some problems. So I know this one has a problem. Let's take a look at it. And here is my path history. And you'll notice that you can see your latency average down here on your path history. So I can take a look at my latency, and if there is a problem, you'll actually see it. So I can scroll back here, and I can see, okay, yesterday at 6:16, it seems there was a problem. So I can click on this point, and it actually pulls up my history at that moment in time. So now I can see, oh, hey, yeah, look, I did lose connection. And it appears that the problem was with the server itself, not the network in transit. But if the problem point were anywhere in between, I would see that. So if I'm experiencing high latency across certain points, I'll see that in this path. So again, just an incredible amount of detail that you're seeing. All right, so my agent install has finished. So let's go ahead and finish that there. And I'm back to my adding an agent screen. So I'm going to say again, connect to a previously installed agent. Let's go to next. All right, I've got to give my agent a name. So we're going to call this Kenny's laptop. Now here you've got two choices. Server-initiated communication. Do you want the Orion polling engine to go out and query the agent software on your box? Or do you want the agent software to communicate with Orion? Which agent initiated, that's what you're going to want to go with. All right, so submit. And I'm not seeing my agent, I think, because it needs just a moment to get caught up with the fact that that agent is actually there. See, I should, when I come back into settings again, I should actually see that agent now. So when I go into Manage Agents, there we are. So here is my agent that I just deployed. And with this deployed, now when I come back into NetPath, let's hit NetPath one more time. Now what I can do is I can come into one of my existing paths, and I can click on Assign a Probe here. And it's going to say create a new probe, because the only probes that I have right now are the one probe that was already set up. So I would need to go to create new probe. Now, this I shouldn't necessarily have to do. I just have to wait for that agent software to catch up. So this is that one glitch that we're going to run into in the demo because of the fact that, again, I had a computer crash. But in terms of the install process, it's very simple. And once the database catches up here in just a second, I will be able to see that agent, add that as a probe, and now I can test from multiple starting points instead of just a single starting point. So I could deploy this agent software on 4, 5, 6 different machines in multiple different regions and see all of the pathways that these different regions are going through to connect to the same service. So you can add multiple probes per path, and you can add up to, I believe, and I may be wrong, Chris, correct me if I am, I believe it is 35 total pathways per agent. Now,
yeah, so a little bit more detail.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
A little bit more detail. So each probe can handle between 10 and 30 paths, and what you'll see in the UI is we actually estimate how many paths each probe can handle based on its CPU and RAM that we detect as available. So it will warn you if you try and go above that.
Thank you, Chris. And the other nice thing about this agent software is the fact that, again, you don't have to install this on an Orion monitored node. You can install it any place that you want. So it doesn't affect licensing. It doesn't affect your Orion performance because of the fact that the agent is actually handling that on the whatever node you install it on. And then it's just passing that information on to Orion. So great in terms of performance, great in terms of licensing. It's just a really nice, slick tool. Now, the one thing that I do need to mention is that it is Windows only at this point in time. So you can install this on any Windows machine that you want, but it has to be a Windows box. All right, that's it. So there's your summary of your introduction to NetPath and to NetInsight for F5s. And that's all I got. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chris. And Chris, you can take the presentation.
Yeah, so we had a couple of questions as we were going there. So I'd like to reiterate some of the ones that we see more commonly and provide some answers. So when we say probe, that is sort of synonymous with agent, which is always the source of your path. So you're deploying a software agent to a Windows machine that is your source of these paths. Another question we got is, how do we get this information? So NetPath, upon first look, you probably, it makes you think about traceroute, which is good because it's a pathing function. However, NetPath does not use traceroute at all. We actually custom craft TCP packets that look like application packets to probe out the path. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons, but the two most important reasons are that the traffic is, of course, by nature, allowed through your firewall because that traffic is needed for the application to work for your users. So in many cases, we see traceroute not working. Traceroute actually doesn't work at the SolarWinds network here beyond our firewall, but NetPath does because it is mimicking that traffic. The other thing to note there is, or the other important aspect is, because NetPath mimics your application traffic, when you have QoS or PBR or other functions that apply different network behavior, different network performance for your application traffic versus, your ICMP or your testing traceroute traffic, you will see that the correct behavior that matches your application traffic's behavior within NetPath where you won't with traceroute. Deploying an agent in Kenny showed one way to deploy an agent that highlights how the NetPath
agent works through the agent architecture that's embedded into the Orion platform, the platform that serves as the basis for for the product of NPM. So you can totally handle it that way. You can do agent deployment that way. Another way is directly within NetPath in NPM. When you're creating a new service, you can create a new probe right there in the wizard, and that will go out and deploy both our agents and the little NetPath plugin that enables NetPath probing. So it's another way to get that done. Let me see if there's any more questions. I'll probably have to jump back onto that via the text chat. Keep the questions coming in. I'm enjoying responding to all these good questions, and we'll find the most popular ones and continue to respond to those in the webinar. I think we are ready for our next section here, so give us a moment to pass off to Chris Kleins.
Hi, everybody. We're going to be talking about best practices for staging your upgrade to the new Orion platform with NPM. We want to cover changes to the OS, taking backups, etc. I'm going to pull up this article here that has a bunch of detail about it. So the first thing we want to do is go through a pre-flight upgrade checklist. Some of these may not pertain to your environment. Some of them will. You want to review the system requirements that are in our product documentation. Some of that's already been shared on the chat. You review your license counts and make sure you're not exceeding any license counts with this upgrade. For most people, that won't be relevant, but for some it will. Do you need to migrate? Do you need to move to a new database server or a new application server because you don't currently meet system requirements? Make sure you have all your credentials. This is important. We migrate all the credentials with upgrades, but there is always some risk that we may lose some. So always a good idea to have all your credentials for your SQL database, for your server's administrator account, and all the stuff you're using for polling. We're going to build an upgrade path. We've got this tool called the Product Upgrade Advisor that will assist you with that. It'll kind of show you what stages you need to go through to get from the current product version you're at to the current product version you're upgrading to. Make sure you process all Windows updates too before upgrading. You want to schedule the upgrade with a maintenance window. Minimum maintenance window we recommend is 2 hours. Most upgrades don't take that long, but it's always good to have some buffer room. And of course, you want to notify the company that the services will be offline during the upgrade. So the upgrade time really is dependent on the hardware performance, your database server performance, the number of pollers, the complexity of the environment, environment performance as a whole. These are all things that would normally involve performance issues with an upgrade of any software, but particularly with us, database performance is the big one because we do make a lot of database changes during our configuration wizard run. It's a good idea to stage the installs on multiple polling engines, upgrade the primary first, and then put all the installers already on the desktop for all the additionals, and you can just go through them one by one. As long as the primary is operational, it'll be able to contact them and complete the install. You are only able to run one configuration wizard simultaneously, however. So we have some new port requirements, port 5671 for our new messaging service, and port 17791 may be needed for agent communication, as we made some changes with the way the agents communicate to the primary server. You want to upgrade NPM first and then follow with all other modules. If you don't have NPM, you just have SAM standalone, upgrade SAM first. Same goes for all other standalone products. Always follow the Product Upgrade Advisor. We have this integrated into our installer now to make it a little easier for you. You can export the list from PUA to a text file that'll give you download links and links to the README files. If you have written your own code for the web application in any of the ASPX or CSS docs, make sure you back that up as well. Make sure you have enough hard drive space, of course, and upgrade only one version at a time. Don't try leapfrogging between 2 or 3 different version upgrades. This is important because some schema changes that we make are necessary for each upgrade to complete successfully. We're going to back up the Orion database and snapshot your VM or back up any of your polling engines. This is important because you're going to need a rollback point. And because not all of our information is contained on the application server, most of it's in the database, you're going to need both backups in order to revert if that's a situation you run into. So you want to back up your reports directory. That's only really an issue if you have a really old version of Orion NPM, because some of the older reports are kept on the file system, but newer versions, they should all be in the database. You want to make sure you have all your exclusions set for antivirus. we have a KV article that will walk you through which folders to exclude. And lastly, before you execute the installer, make sure you stop services from the Orion Service Manager. When upgrading multiple products, multiple modules, you need to make sure there's any special gotchas from the README files. They'll tell you if you need to upgrade one version to another. The Product Upgrade Advisor will help with this too. It'll show you any bottlenecks that you need to get over as far as version upgrading. The improved standalone installer is where the Product Upgrade Advisor lives now, as well as the website, so that will help as well. So there's a smart bundle. This will save you a lot of time for additional polling engines. It's really advisable to run that because you're going to get all current versions with that. And again, the Product Upgrade Advisor will tell you if you have any problems where you can't do a direct upgrade. After you upgrade the system, make sure you check the web console, make sure all services are running. If we experience issues that are not in the latest product versions, we recommend completing a full upgrade. Use the Product Upgrade Advisor to create the upgrade path. You can check our Success Center for troubleshooting. That's where we are right now. This article lives there. And you can check the customer portal for any new hot fixes that may be available for the software you're upgrading. It's a good idea to also run the permissions checker after upgrade. It's an application that lives in the SolarWinds installation directory. This will help you resolve any possible file system permissions issues if you get a 500 error on the web console, for instance, or a 401.3 or anything similar to that. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to turn this over to Lori, who's going to walk you through some other stuff.
Hey folks, this is Lori. I'm part of the doc team, and you got to see kind of a quick view on the new multiple product upgrade guide. We also have one just specifically for NPM, as well as SAM and a few others. I just wanted to give you a quick look because I want you to be able to read these as you like. This is our Success Center. If you haven't been here yet, wow, you're missing out. This place is awesome. We've been including documentation. You can search against the admin guide starting at GA, as well as all of our KVs in one place. So that's pretty snazzy. If you come to the documentation and area of the portal for Network Performance Monitor, our lovely NPM, you will see a link here for the support resources for NPM 12. It is literally everything. If you want to follow along, I added a link over in the chat. This is your one-stop shop for everything. We include our brand new release notes. I can tease you with them, but trust me, they're not, as one of our lovely reviewers said, release notes are like, you know, chewing sawdust. This is freaking awesome. So I highly recommend checking those out. As well as the NPM upgrade guide. You're going to see something that looks a lot like the multiple upgrade guide, but specific for NPM. And I'm the writer for all these, so if you post comments, if you show us if you like it and leave feedback, I will update this guide on the fly as you guys respond. I'll let you go and walk through that. But not only did we come up with a new upgrade guide, we've also included some links for some fantastic upgrade training that our group is putting together, the minimum requirements for NPM 12, and if you have other products, I'm also creating KVs for every other version that will be out probably in the next couple days. I'm churning these out as fast as I can for you guys. We do have a preview draft of the admin guide that does reflect everything in the new NPM 12. As well as some extra links if you just want to go and check out our brand new features. These are also fantastic, and if you want to check out the NetPath, it gives you a deep dive with a use case scenario that you can follow along and learn more. A lot of folks we've talked to want to hand these around the office because they're like, you've got to check this out. Also with all of this, one last thing I will point out, as an extra bonus feature, I went ahead and worked on a nice migration guide with everybody in our group. And I'll let you check this out. It does include migration updated information if you're moving products to a new server with the same IP and hostname or a new, as well as updates for your SQL database and all of the lovely NTA. These pages will continue to grow as you guys need content. So I will let you just enjoy the awesome docs. Thanks very much.
All right, so this is Chris again. We are looking at the questions in the chat. There was a question about the port requirements for NetPath. The administration guide for NPM RC is actually available at support.solarwinds.com. If you go to the NPM section, you'll see a subheading there for release candidate. There we have the admin guide, and if you scroll down to page 190, you will find the NetPath ports that are required. Let's see if we have any more questions in the chat here. Give me one moment. Okay, so I'll jump back and probably answer a few more questions via the text chat there. But I think we are good to go for this. Hopefully this has been very helpful for you guys. We hope you like the new features. I'd love to hear feedback that you have on this release. As the product manager, it's my job to make sure this release does what you need it to do to be useful. And I think that will do it for us. So thanks so much for attending. Good luck on your NPM v12 upgrades. Let us know how it goes.